Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. It's team selection time for Game Week 2 and I am joined by Gianni. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very good, thank you, mate. It's good to be back, isn't it? It's good to be back in the swing of things, and the real work starts now, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you feeling after the first game week? Glad to have it out of the way?
Yeah, do you know what? I didn't have a huge amount of returns, but I'm happy with how those that didn't return still played. So I'm fairly comfortable with my squad. And yeah, just looking forward to really seeing how managers integrate United and City assets. I think that's the big one.
Yeah, I've just pulled your squad up on screen, so we'll chat about that in just a sec. If you're enjoying these type of videos, by the way, we are going to be doing them every single week with Gianni, so make sure you do subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 50k, very, very close now, and obviously give it a like as well if you enjoy it. So I've brought the squad up on screen, so you got a bit of stick for your Arsenal players last week in the comments I saw, but Maitland-Niles came through for a clean sheet, as expected, right?
Of course he did. And it was never in doubt. And, this time last week when we were recording, I was looking at triple Arsenal and it was a little bit too risky to go for. Thankfully, I didn't. And Nketiah, and I saw a lot of teams with Saka. Again, of course, he didn't start. But the two I knew would start, of course, was Aubameyang and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And that back five, I did a lot of research into it. And yes, it was Gabriel instead of Saliba, as many perhaps thought. But in terms of the structure of it, Tierney at left centre back, Bellerin and Ainsley Maitland-Niles really high up the pitch. I was really pleased with that. And, they look really comfortable. And I am expecting, if I do keep Maitland-Niles for the long term, I am expecting some attacking returns there. Saying that, the fixtures turned so much after West Ham. Don't know if he will be in for the long term. It depends if I want to use those transfers on defenders. But I was really happy with Arsenal. They look good, didn't they?
Yeah, not bad at all. Obviously, I guess one thing to take into account, they did play Fulham, so we'll see how they go on. But it's not like they've got a much more difficult fixture this week either with West Ham, so should be a good again this week. Overall rank doesn't really matter after game week 1 hugely. So you're 1.7 million at the moment, 59 points. How are you feeling about that? Because obviously there's a lot of scores, especially from people that captain Salah knocking about kind of 70, 80 plus. So how are you feeling after with 59?
Yeah, do you know, we've all been there where we go, okay, I nearly had Roman Saiss in my team, or I had Salah as captain in all my other drafts. But if buts and maybes, I'm very happy just being a Salah owner. And yeah, I've seen people hitting sort of 80 and 90, those that captained him and had a few returns elsewhere. But your time will come. I still think Aubameyang was a good shout. Maybe Salah was the better option on paper, but Aubameyang on another day could have had another goal, could have had, there could have been penalties in that game and he takes them. So yeah, I'm fairly happy. Like I said, those that blanked, I thought still played well and I was happy with their sort of performances. So the likes of, I don't know, Shea Adams could have easily scored and looked good. Timo Werner, I thought looked brilliant and, he's going to be a goals machine for sure. St. Maximin looked right, didn't really threaten too much, but I'm fairly happy. Spurs I don't think will concede too many, so I'm happy with Dyer in my team. So it's not like I want to make wholesale changes, which is what we often see with managers after game week 1. So many will be hitting that wild card for that reason, but there's a few I like that I'm just I will give time to, and I mentioned a few of them just there.
Yeah, let's have a look at next week how the team is lined up for or how it's looking right now. So I think a lot of people went for Southampton players. I've got Adams myself, and to be fair, both Ings and Adams were a bit unlucky not to score. Maybe should have had at least one goal between them. Now the first fixture looked good, Palace. Now it's Spurs at home, Burnley away, and maybe it doesn't look so rosy after they didn't do anything in the first game. Are you worried about them at all, or are they just holds for you?
No, do you know what the plan was always? I know there'll be loads of people commenting as we speak saying, why has he got double Southampton attack? So just to clarify, that was a short-term measure. It was actually the plan has always been to get United cover for game week 2. So that United cover was going to be Greenwood for Mount or Martial for Ings, 0.5 in the bank, ready and waiting to make either of those moves. Knowing what's been going on with Greenwood, I was always more attracted to the Martial move. So the Ings for Martial move is looking very likely. I'd say I'm 90% likely to make that move this week. So yeah, I'll still have double Southampton with McCarthy and Shea Adams, but I'm comfortable with that. There's no such thing as a bad 4.4 million keeper or no such thing as a 6 million forward that's starting in a team that score a decent amount of goals. So I'm fairly happy with Shadams there. Yes, he's not a 90-minute man, but he's only 6 million. Will he keep up with Danny Ings? Probably not, but I can't afford 8.5 on Ings, knowing United will be more explosive and I need to cover their assets.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, again, we spoke about it last week. A lot of people have got that Ings to Martial move in mind. I think especially so now that he blanked as well. It's not really going to stop a lot of people doing it. So I think we will see quite a few sales for him. You kind of mentioned Werner for Chelsea. Let's talk about Chelsea in general, because I don't think they were that good against Brighton. I think it was a pretty poor performance from most of their players. I actually thought Mason Mount, who you had, was okay. But it just, I don't know, the balance of the team wasn't right. Loftus-Cheek just wasn't any good, I don't think, to put it bluntly. And obviously Havertz, it was his first game. He hasn't really trained that much. Really missing Pulisic and probably Ziyech as well. So what's your thoughts on Chelsea players going forward? And more to the point, while Pulisic and Ziyech are still out, do you still think they're good options?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'd say the Chelsea lineup was one we didn't expect. No one expected, many expected 4-2-3-1, and I think that will be a shape we can get used to. And the two will always be Kante and Jorginho, or Kante and Kovacic, or sometimes Kovacic and Jorginho. It'll always be 2 of 3. But it was a number 10 spot that we were really sort of spun by. He went with Loftus-Cheek for one reason and one reason only, I think. He couldn't stick Loftus-Cheek or Hudson-Odoi out on that left-hand side because of the threat of Lamptey. He went with Mason Mount on the left. Ideally, you'd have Mason Mount in the 10 position, but he didn't want to stick Loftus-Cheek out on the left. So Mason Mount, yes, Lamptey was very good and still got forward. He'd have got forward a lot more and been way more dangerous if Mason Mount hadn't been there. And Mount is very much the start of the press. And yes, you could, a little bit like Oscar used to be at Chelsea, defending from the front. He still offers some creativity there. And Mason Mount, I don't really want it in my team moving forward, although I'm happy with him for the next, little burst of fixtures. As I said, it could have easily been Mount to Greenwood. Mount to James Rodriguez is potentially still on the cards. But, I'd say just give them time. If you're on a Chelsea double up, then yeah, maybe you've gone a little bit too early if you've, say, got Havertz and Werner. But if I'm a Werner owner, I'm definitely keeping. If I'm a Havertz owner and I don't own other Chelsea, I think I would still hold, despite him being incredibly quiet. Let's not forget he's only had a week to train with the team. And yeah, he was playing on the right of a 3 and didn't seem to get forward too much or look too creative. But, he played there a lot at Borussia Dortmund, Bayer Leverkusen, sorry. And then, of course, Pulisic will hopefully be fit for the weekend. And if he's not, then we can expect a similar shape and a similar team for Liverpool. And therefore, you probably want to avoid that double up. At the back, Reese James looked threatening, didn't he? And at 5 million, I think he could offer really good value. Not just, the clean sheets we're going to struggle for, but it's the same reason why we pick attacking fullbacks. It's for attacking returns. And what we saw with Reese James was he's on corners. And when Ziyech comes into the team, expect Ziyech on corners. But Reese James was very good on those set pieces. But also he offers that goal threat, as we saw last night. I think it was his debut goal for Chelsea in the Premier League. But for those that will remember and saw him at Wigan, he did that a lot at Wigan. I think he was Wigan's Player of the Year. I think he was in Championship Team of the Year. This is only 2 years ago from right back. And we saw him move into the middle when Jorginho went off. So he'll offer goal threat. And I think Reece James is one to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think what do you, just quickly on Chelsea, what do you think the kind of his minutes will be like? Because obviously Azpilicueta didn't start last night. It could have quite easily been Azpi on the left, Reece on the right, or Alonso could have played and Azpilicueta played on the right. Do you think Reece James is a genuine option going forward with his minutes? Do you think he's going to be in the team regularly enough?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he'll be a banker every week, like say a Chilwell will be when fit, but I do think James will be the preferred option at right back. I think until Chilwell is fit and in the team, we'll see Azpilicueta at left back against Liverpool, for example. I don't think he'll play Alonso at left back. And then potentially we might see Frank trialling Reece James in the middle in that 4-2-3-1 formation. We saw it last night. Jorginho went off, holding alongside Kante. We saw Reece James. That could be a sign of things to come. But no, I think his preferred position will still be right back. And I do think he'll start sort of 70-75% of Premier League games when fit. Versus a Chilwell, for example, when match fit, will be starting 95% of Premier League games, I'm sure. So if you do go with James, you've got that little bit of risk. But at the same time, you're saving money on a Chilwell. He's cheaper. And, he perhaps offers a little bit more in terms of goal threat.
Yeah, absolutely. He was really good last night. To be fair, attacking wise, maybe not quite as good as Lamptey. I don't know. That's probably up for debate, but we'll leave that one for another video. Let's talk about Dyer because you mentioned how. You're happy to kind of play him. Spurs do have good fixtures. Southampton, I think it's West Ham and Newcastle, all to come in the next four. But do you think there's a good prospect for clean sheets? Because Everton opened them up quite a few times. Now, all things being said, Everton were actually quite good, which was maybe a little bit unexpected for some people. Kind of wait and see how their midfield kind of gelled together. But it was good. What do you make of their defence? Dyer, he was the one that was supposed to be marking Calvert-Lewin, right? And completely just didn't really go for the header. So what's you thinking there?
Yeah, they're pretty bad, weren't they? Spurs in general. Do you know what I said pre-season? The reason I've not got Kane, the reason I've not got Son, and I know loads of you watching this are going to be on Kane or on Son, or you'll be Spurs fans. But do I want to spend 10.5 on a Spurs attacking asset? No. Why? Because they just don't produce enough. And yeah, they got Southampton this weekend. So if I'm on them, I'll probably sticking on them because Southampton conceded loads of chances against Crystal Palace. So Son and Kane might turn up, but long term, I think it's too much money to be spent. But at the back, I do think there's value in that Spurs defence moving forward. Yes, they were poor against Everton at the back. Everton were very creative and were very good. But I do think, I look at the post-lockdown form from Mourinho, and Spurs were one of the best defences in the league post-lockdown. He finally got them keeping clean sheets. Now, that might mean another few weeks on the training ground to get them back into shape. But I do think long-term, Spurs will be tight at the back. And we'll see. Mourinho did it at United, did it years before that at Chelsea. He can create a team that's solid and concedes very few chances. And yes, it's taken him a while at Spurs, but there were signs that we were seeing that post-lockdown. I think they were 4th or 5th in terms of rank on goals conceded and clean sheets post-lockdown. And again, I think we'll see that. It just needs a little bit of time to settle in. And who's Dyer going to play alongside? Will it be Sanchez? Will it be Toby Alderweireld? Who's going to be in front of him? Will Winks be in or out the team? Is Sissoko there? There's no settled 11 yet. And when there is, I do think Dyer will benefit from that. And the fixtures are good, so I'm keeping him in.
Yeah, and obviously it is just game week 1. We've only got 1 week's worth of data. Let's see, I guess, what Spurs are like versus a potentially weaker team. Not that Southampton are bad, of course, but I mean Everton, like we said, were very good. Let's talk about the goalkeeper situation here, because a lot of people will have Steer on the bench. Now, we know that Martinez is very close to, or it sounds like he's very close to signing. Obviously, it doesn't mean he's necessarily ready to go straight away. What will make you if Martinez signs? Will that just be straight away? You won't risk it, or would you still play him in the hope that Martinez gets benched for the first game?
Yeah, I'd still play Steer. My backup Steer is very much my backup keeper. If he plays this game week, it will probably be his only game week of the season he plays. And McCarthy is a set and forget. I'm not planning on rotating keepers, and I certainly don't expect Steer to be the number one moving forward. Even if Martinez doesn't sign, they'll sign someone. It could be Nyland as the backup instead of Steer. So we really don't know if Steer's going to play. But I just like that fixture if he does. Look, he's not going to come off the bench and get 10 minutes and get me the 1 point. So if Steer doesn't play, I'm really not fussed because McCarthy comes in, and like everyone else, I've got McCarthy in. But Aston Villa goalkeeper at home to Sheffield United, or Spurs keeper at home to Southampton. Southampton keeper away to Spurs. I prefer Steer. Sheffield United don't score many. They look terrible against Wolves, and actually quite like Villa's business. I like what they've done this summer, and Grealish signing a new deal helps. If Steer plays, great. If he doesn't, McCarthy comes in. But am I expecting a McCarthy clean sheet? No, I do think Spurs will score in that game. Hence me saying about Son and Kane. Do I think they're good FPL investments long term? No, because the price is too much for a team that don't create. But Palace created so many chances against Southampton, which we were really surprised at. Spurs will take those chances, surely.
Yeah, I think the amount of times Zaha got in, I just imagine if that was Son instead, how many more times they would have scored. I will just say before the comments roll in, it's McCarthy at home to Spurs rather than away, because I know people will point it out because they can't help it. I'm also on Steer, by the way, this week. I have the same goalkeeper setup, Steer and McCarthy.
Oh, yeah.
There's just that small part of me that just thinks, what if Steer had to come on for 10 minutes for whatever reason? But like the chance of that happening are so low. And Sheffield United probably, if you're ever going to back a clean sheet, it's probably against Sheffield United. So before we wrap it up, is there any kind of, I know obviously you said already about Ings to Martial, is there any other transfers that you're considering for this week, or maybe players that you're looking to potentially move on sooner rather than later?
Yeah, there's a few. St. Maximum, I don't think is going to be a long-term pick. I went with the masses. I think 20% ish owned. Newcastle played a 4-4-2 and he was wide. I don't really like it. St. Maximum in a 4-4-2 as an FPL asset. We've seen Podence do really well for Wolves on set pieces too. If Podence is going to get a run of games, he's the better 5.5 option. There'll be a few. My plan is still to move Aubameyang on for a KDB or a Sterling in game week 3. So the game week 2 transfer and the game week 3 transfer are still very much on the cards. But likewise, there's loads in my watch list I like. I thought Lamptey was brilliant. I really want to try and get him in at some point for Brighton. He'll get loads of attacking returns with them playing wing backs. I mentioned I was impressed with Reese James, but I was really impressed with Wolves too. So I want Wolves cover. And the plan of selling Maitland-Niles was to bring in whoever comes in at Wolves, because they will, I'm sure, be buying a right back, potentially even a left back. And the plan was to go Maitland-Niles to whoever that new Wolves signing is, praying for Telles. If not, maybe a Roman Saiss. And then, I really still believe that Mo Salah is a set and forget is a very dangerous term, but I've seen so much talk in the community about moving Salah on for Bruno come game week 2 or KDB come game week 3. I think what we saw with Salah at the weekend was special. I think he's going to have an amazing season. Leeds, yes, they were opening. Yes, 2 of the goals were pens, but he just looks really sharp. At times last year, we owned Salah and we were thinking he'll still come up with a goal and he'd still produce us the 5 or 10 point returns, but he didn't look terrifying. He's back to where he was, I think, 12, 18 months ago, where he looked like he was kind of top 3 players in the world. And what we saw, yes, it was only a small sample from one game, but he was electric against Leeds. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. And I'm really hoping FPL managers start trading him in for other premium assets. I think, do that at your peril. It's a really high risk now. He looked amazing.
Yeah, we'll have to wait. I think we'll have to wait for press conferences on Man United, because I think a few players have only just actually come back to train. And given what Lamptey, I know, and again, it's just one game, but given what Lamptey did and the problems he caused Alonso, I'm looking forward to seeing what Salah can do. Obviously, it could be Reese and Azpilicueta, now that Azpilicueta's got a few minutes under his belt. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, good luck for next week. Aubameyang definitely locked in for captain.
Yeah, he is. I must admit, game week 1, I considered Aubameyang versus Salah. It was a hard call to make. This is one of the easiest captain choices I think we'll make this season. Yes, Salah and Werner, I think Chelsea and Liverpool both concede, so they've both got good chances of returning. But Aubameyang against West Ham looked really poor. Aubameyang's firing. The contract situation helps Aubameyang. It's an easy one for me.
Yeah, same for me. Cool. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, didn't perform quite how we liked in game week 1, but it still returned at the end of the day. Nothing to say you won't do that again. Just before we shoot off, I would say, if you haven't already signed up to be a Fantasy Football Scout member and you do want to try that out, there's a link in the description below. Loads of stuff on offer, which you can see on the screen now. Do make sure to like the video as well before you go, and do subscribe, please. We are so close to 50,000 subscribers now. Just hit that button, and that is job done. Gianni, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, mate. See you next week.
We will see you again next week. Good luck, all.